Justin Marshall joins us, former All Black 81 Test veteran and also presenter on Sky Sport as we talk things rugby. Justin, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks, Marty. Good to hear from you, mate.
Well, a few topics to talk about. I want us to pick our All Black backline right now. Should teams rest their best players playing Super Rugby rounds? And also where the table is going to finally sit when all the rounds have been done and won. But Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, JK on the weekend, saying that he believes that this should happen right away, that the Benji Marshall clause should be invoked and that Roger should be allowed to go back to league. Where do you think it sits?
I guess probably it lies with the player, really. Like, if he feels like he wants to shift back to rugby league now and he's unhappy, then absolutely he should be allowed to do that. Look, there's no doubt in my mind that contractually, in any form of work or sport, that if you have an unhappy employee who is not enjoying coming to work every day, then nobody's winning. So, I think certainly if Roger Tuivasa-Sheck feels that rugby's passed him by and he wants to go back to rugby league and he wants to go back there sooner rather than later, then he should be able to execute that, and he shouldn't be held back because of it. Obviously they'll have to come to an agreement contractually over it that suits both parties, but yeah, there's no point in having somebody in the environment that doesn't want to be there, and I don't know what his situation is, Marty. To be honest, I don't know why JK would say that unless he knows that maybe he wants to go now.
I kind of figured the same thing too, and we know that JK's got a real into the Blues, and so I thought the same thing as well as why he would bring that up. They've got a place available in their squad by June the 30th, I think, the Warriors, and at the end of Super Rugby. Look, unless there's a huge run of midfield injuries, he's not been picked for the All Blacks World Cup squad. So yeah, I don't know why it just wouldn't happen. It just seems so sensible.
Yep, absolutely. And again, it's just a matter of what his focus is. Obviously, he is still contracted through till the end of the season. Maybe Auckland, NPC side, feel a little bit different than what the Blues do. And they could really do with his services given Rugby World Cup and the players that are going to be missing. I don't know. There might be binding contractual issues with the New Zealand Rugby Union. But again, you can get amicable agreement if both parties want the same thing or recognise that whatever has happened is not working, and if they can reach a resolution, then you're best to do that, I believe.
Justin Marshall on the program with us on the platform. All right, the Chiefs, are they still the best team in the comp despite that loss to the Reds?
Yeah, they are, because their consistency points that way. They've not had the ups and downs of many of the other teams that are sitting in that top 8 or even the top 4. The Crusaders have had their moments. The Blues, obviously now they're really under the pump. The Hurricanes have probably been one of the other more consistent performers, but that hasn't been without tripping up as well. So in general, look, every team in this competition is always going to be tested and tried from week to week, and they're going to have an off day. I think probably they underestimated the Reds, and as we spoke about last week, equally they rested a few players and it came back to bite them. That doesn't all of a sudden make them a bad team. It just makes them a team that got caught with their pants down. So I'm certainly sure that Craig McMillan would have pulled them up and put a belt on them this week, knowing him, and they should be in a better space.
Justin, so resting players, look, we know they rest and rotate because of this 5-game rule, but it's not a B team exactly, but when you actually leave out some of your best players, and we saw that with the Chiefs, is that when you bring on the big boys, they haven't played with these guys before a lot, or certainly not under load. They may have practiced and trained with them, but a lot of those guys looked as though they'd just met for the very first time. It was like two different teams were almost playing. How difficult is it to be able to do that, just to throw a few of your A-team players out from the bench back onto the field and expect it to be different?
It takes a little bit of time. There's no doubt that throughout a training week, everybody gets opportunities, so they do start to form some combinations within the group, and that helps. So people get time with different players, just in case injuries happen or there's a need for rest or there's a need for rotation, whatever it might be. So there is still some work that is done at trainings, because the planning now is, so right down to all the sort of micro things that can possibly happen, including they train for red and yellow cards, and they look at the referee and going, okay, what would be our response should we get a red card? How will we cope with it for 20 minutes under the way this guy referees the game? So that's how much they look into it. So yeah, look, it does have an effect because simulation is not the same as live action. So pressure's more, contact's more, everything is just more intense. So it does take a little bit of time, but in general, most players should know each other quite well. But world-class players are world-class players. The more of them that you have out there, the better your team's going to function.
Now, is that a good result for the competition, though, the Reds winning?
Yeah, I think it is. I think, like the Crusaders being tipped up by a couple of teams this year, including the Chiefs, it makes the rest of the competition realise that if they go out with the right intent and have a good day at the office, that the team that they're playing is invincible, that they are human. And I think that's encouraging for every side. And it also, again, probably puts a little bit of a thunderbolt over a side that has thought that they weren't, that they were invincible and were tracking along nicely and everybody's talking about them. All of a sudden, a team that shouldn't be beating them can knock them over. So that complacency or that confidence is slightly rocked, and that can have a positive effect on a side as well. So yeah, I think it is good for the comp.
We're looking at the Super Rugby comp, Justin Marshall, with this Chiefs, Brumbies, Hurricanes, Crusaders, Blues in that order. And then there's a massive gap. So there's 5 top teams and 7 that aren't. And 3 of those other teams will be making up the 8, of course. When I look at the fixture list, though, and I'm just going to quickly run this by you. I don't know how much of it's going to be memory retained, but just bear with me for a second. The Chiefs have got the Canes, the Brumbies and the Force. The Brumbies have got the Force, the Chiefs, the Rebels. The Canes, listen to this, they've got the Chiefs, the Blues and the Crusaders in their last 3 games. That's got to be the toughest draw. Crusaders have got MP and then New South Wales and then the Canes. You'd expect them to win 2 of those. The Blues have got the Rebels, the Canes and the Highlanders. Maybe they win 2 of those. Out of that, just looking quickly at those, I mean, the Hurricanes have got 3 games and they've already lost to these teams already this season. The other 3 teams that they've lost to. So, I'm just looking at the top 4 or top 5, and I think most people would probably want, just for the sake of it, the Crusaders to stay in 4th, get the Chiefs in that, 4th and 5th, and then in the semi-final. But it doesn't look that way. How do you see the top 4 unfolding from here?
Yeah, well, the permutations, as you've just described, are never going to be that easy to work out when you've got difficult games in front of you. And we're even boiling down to the last round, like you said, when you've got the Crusaders playing the Hurricanes away after them already having played 2 New Zealand teams. The Blues, they suffered a big setback at the weekend. And they haven't got an easy road home either. But when you look at the balance of those teams that you mentioned, you would imagine that the Chiefs, even though they're quite clear on the points table now, if they were to have a catastrophic end to the season, it could jeopardise their place. But you would think that they're too good an outfit to drop their position. The Crusaders are the most likely to probably sit in second when you look at it, simply because, really their only true test, with the greatest respect to the other opposition, is that Hurricanes game. They should beat Moana Pacifica this weekend, and equally they should beat the Waratahs, albeit they are on a bit of a momentum shift. The Waratahs, and are a much more dangerous outfit with lots of players back. The only one that really sort of gets in the way is probably the Brumbies, and the Brumbies are controlling their own destiny at the moment. So you would think that those 4 teams that we've mentioned, Chiefs, Crusaders, Brumbies and the Hurricanes, should make up that top 4. The biggest vulnerability I can see is the Hurricanes. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to tell you, Marty, because I know that's your side. Mm-hmm. But they've got, having 3 New Zealand franchises, that physicality, that intensity, knowing each other so well. Yeah, they're the team that's got the most pressure on them. Yeah,
well, if you look at that draw, the other team that you think, sitting there going, my God, you've got 3 finals matches for them before they would play their first finals match. And the way you're looking at it, I mean, just, sense and sensibility would suggest to me that they might actually drop to 4 or 5, and then them and the Blues might be playing 4th and 5th. Is it still a Chiefs-Crusaders final for you?
Yeah, I think if they can avoid each other leading up to the final, absolutely. I think they're probably the 2 best sides in the competition at the moment. I certainly think that the Blues have the firepower, but they're just not playing as well as those other 2 teams. equally, I think the Hurricanes are a very capable side. You just got to think about their forward pack. Is it as strong as the Blues, Chiefs and Crusaders when it comes down to knockout rugby? I certainly think their backline's playing well enough. I think on the balance of the competition, the results so far and the big games that have been played, even though the Crusaders lost twice to the Chiefs, they were intense, high-quality games. Those two teams, for me, if they met in the final, I tell you what, everybody would be pretty happy because it'll be one hell of a final.
A virtual All Black trial. Finally, let's finish then on that. The All Black backline, we'll concentrate on that, leave the forwards for another week. But just looking at, the 9 through 15 and also 3 players on the bench, if you had to pick it today on form, or if you want, you can actually say, hey, this player's coming back from injury and they're going to be back from injury and they're going to be playing at their best. Who would you have in that All Black backline?
Wow, yeah, it's not easy, is it? When you think of consistency, probably what we don't want to do is want to put an All Black side out there that we would think would be picked. You've got to put it out there who's performed at the peak of their powers in the whole Super Rugby. So for me, Cam Roigard would be the starting 9 at the moment because he's been, I think he's one of the leading try scorers in the comp, and he's been simply outstanding. I think Richie Mo'onga is still looking like the most solid-looking 10. No doubt about the fact that Geordie Barrett, nice and strong in the midfield. Centre's a bit of a conundrum, to be honest, because, again, if you're picking players on form, you'd probably have to put Billy Proctor in the mix because he's just playing so well. And lots of other players have been in and out of that jersey, and Anton Leonard-Brown's only just coming back. The three-quarters... For me, Lester Anuku has been probably one of the finds of the season. Sean Stevenson is the other. I'd put him on the wing, and obviously Damien McKenzie, with the form he's been in, I'd slot him in at fullback. Many could argue and debate probably the merits of having McKenzie at 10, which I'm quite open to have a decent beer over, but I think in terms of a threatening attacking backline, I think probably at the moment, given that Will Jordan's only just making his way back, Bowden probably doesn't make it a fullback. I would put D-Mac at 15. How about that?
All right. What about 3 on the bench?
Oh, my goodness gracious me. Well, Aaron Smith for sure. Again, when you're looking at form players, of Super Rugby at the moment, you probably really do still need to carry a 10, and you wonder whether or not they, because you've got McKenzie in the side, if Perofeta was fit, he would be that 10, but I'm a bit unsure. I would like some help as to who you feel in form at the moment would fit in there, or some of the listeners who could help and text in. I don't know, but I'm reluctant to put Bowden there because I'm just not sure he's quite there yet at this point in stage. An outside back at the moment who's playing really, really well. Probably Mark Talia is still probably the guy that you would want to be coming off the bench and adding some impact.
Appreciate that. We'll talk again next week, Justin. Always a pleasure, mate. Good on you.
Thanks, mate. And it's always good to be stumped on live radio. I really, really enjoy it. I've been able to pick my reserve 10.
Awesome, mate. Justin Marshall with us on the platform.